Howdy folks, Little John, Brew A. We're in the kitchen, we're out of the garage. Reason being, doing a kit-based beer. And it's just a little bit easier in here than in the garage. I sort of said I was going to veer away from the kits a little bit, but I was at Big W yesterday looking to get a little bit of malt for some yeast I was playing around with, and come across the Coopers, the Brew A IPA, one of the newer ones. I've not done one of the newer kits. And the reason what grabbed my attention was that little sticker on the back there. Reduced to $9.20 with a couple of weeks left on the best before. So, given the dramas I've been having lately with a couple of infections and running a bit low on beer, well, what the heck, let's give it a go. So, today's brew is going to be based on that Coopers IPA tin. So, put these packs there, we'll get them off there. I don't really want to be using that, but anyway. So, what I'm going to be doing today, I'm just going to run through this fairly quickly, fairly straightforward. What am I going to do? Going to split this into two batches. First batch, I'm going to run, well, the first half is going to be fairly similar to the Coopers instructions. Now, as said on the tin here, they recommend, if you're making 23 litres, to use 1.5 kilos of Coopers light dry malt. Now I'm going to go on the 23 litres. I'll split this into two, like 11.5 litre batches. But I read a bit of stuff there, and I wasn't going to go and buy some more malt. So what I'm going to do with this half a batch is I'm going to use a straight up box of BE free. Now that's half malt, 25% dextrose, 25% maltodextrin. So if I split the 1.5 kilos of malt down into the half batch, it's 750 grams of malt, 500 grams of malt, 250 grams of dex. It's close enough in my books. If anything, it's going to push the alcohol a little higher, so it's going to be a little bit more fermentable, and will keep the sweetness under control a bit. I think 1.5 kilos, or the equivalent of the light dry malt, would leave far too much body. I get it's an IPA and we want a bit of alcohol, but I don't want to be overly sweet. We want to be, a little bit easier to drink. So that's where we go for half the batch, and I'm going to run some hops. Now I haven't actually decided on the hops, but I will let you know what they're going to be very shortly. I've got a few things happening here, and then I'm going to go and work out the hops going to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the basic boil for this. I'm going to pick out 2 hops out of the freezer. I've got 4 litres of water over here, which I brought up to just short of a boil, and I will add the box of BE free to that just to dissolve it, and then I'm going to do a 10-minute boil on that. I'm going to throw in, as I said, the 2 kinds of hops, for some at 10 minutes, some with about 2 minutes left of that boil, and then I'll get that into the fermenter pretty quick so it drops back down the temperature so we don't get any extended utilisation on the hops. So it's going to be a more traditionally hopped IPA. It's going to be more solid, and I probably won't run any dry hopping on that half of the batch. Just leave it run a bit more, a bit more standard to how the tin runs. Just that extra hop, just to get a little bit more extra oomph. The other half, I'm working on a little bit harder. So I have a pot here, which I've just got up to 70 degrees. About 5 litres of water here, and I have got in the bag there 400 grams of rye and 500 grams of Simpson's lager malt. Now I'm going to pop them in there, and I'm just going to let this steep or mash, depends how you want to. Basically it's going to be a mini mash. I've gone for enough base with the lager malt to make sure we convert the rye that's in there. And I'm going to let that sit for half an hour. And so that should stay pretty much in that 60-degree mark, 60 to 65, quite nicely. And I'm just stirring in enough to make sure all that grain has been wet. And it's getting in there nicely. Pop the lid on, and so we'll give that half an hour to do its thing. In half an hour I'll come back, I'll pull the grain bag out, I'll put some hops into here, and we'll do a small one. Again, I'm going to do a hot boil on this one as well. But the difference on this one's going to be, I'm going to bring this to a boil of the grain water, boil it for about 10 minutes just to kill off any nasties that are in the grain. I'm going to switch off the heat. Then I'm going to put my hops in and just let it slowly cool down with the hops in there. So I'm not actually going to boil the hops in this half. But it will get hopped a bit more heavily. And that second half is going to get dry hopped as well in the fermenter when we're going through. So it's going to be more of a rye IPA. I'm using the rye and the lager malt to boost up the alcohol, and I've also got 400 grams of dry malt there. That will go in that as well. So I'm expecting the first half batch is probably going to finish in the bottle, end of the day, somewhere in the low 5% mark. The second half of the batch is rye IPA. I'm hoping to push probably more into the 5-7, sort of range, 5-6, 5-7. A little bit more alcohol, but we'll see how it's a bit iffy on how that how much we get out of this steeping. So we'll see. So let that sit for the moment. I'm going to use USO5 on both of these. I'm going to keep the yeast the same, just so I can get a bit of a judgment more on how the actual brew itself goes. 1 pack of USO5 for each half batch, so the equivalent of the 2 packs per batch, around that 1 gram a litre, as I normally do. So that's it for the moment. So I'll give that half an hour. I'll go and get recipe bits and pieces together and work out what hops are going to go in. I'll get my can here. I've got a sink of hot water sitting there. So if I can work out how this bloody label will come off, it says the peel here. Oh, look at that, it does work. Sort of. I'll get this into the sink of hot water so it starts softening up. There you go. That's a bit of an intelligence test on video, isn't it? Yeah, I might just say I think the old method of ripping them off from the top would have worked easier. But there you go. So it gets in the sink there, hot water. So I'll see you shortly, and we'll get next lot of this happening. Rightio. Our grain is steeped for half an hour. I pulled it out, let it drain off, bringing that back to a boil. Our pot for the first half is up and going. I'm going to raise him up a little bit. It's boiled just gently for about 10 minutes now. So it's ready for the hops to go in. I've added about 400 grams, roughly, maybe 500 of the BE3. I've just put roughly a bit under half the bag into the pot. Just for utilisation, you don't want it all in. Hops work better at around 1040 gravity, and 100 grams of malt or sugars to a litre of water will get you roughly in that sort of ballpark. It's a pretty easy number just to work with without getting too tangled up with it. So it's ready to go. So I've gone through, ripped out some hops. Not a great deal of thought's really gone into the hop combinations. I've just grabbed out a few different hops which I know are going to work nicely flavour wise and will work together reasonably well. So what I've bunged up for this first batch is 15 grams of Citra and 15 grams of Galaxy, and bang, they're going straight in. I'm going to boil them for 10 minutes. So again, we'll put the timer on for 10. Okay, so while that's underway, this fella's still coming to the boil. That's all good. So just quickly touch on the hops on that, and then I'm going to get in and mix this fermenter up ready. I've gone through, I've got Mosaic and Chinnok, which will go in when I turn the flame out on this boil. So I'm going to boil it for 10 minutes. It's just about to boil, so I'm about just over 10 minutes from now. I'll throw that in. 10 minutes after that, I'll just be cooling, and it's just going to sit on the stove to cool at the moment. I'm not putting it into a cool. I'm not trying to cool it with any other process. Just letting it cool on its own. We'll then throw in some Glacier and some Citra. That will sit for another 10 minutes, and then I'm going to throw in some Dorado. That will sit for another 10 minutes. So that first lot will end up having a total of 30 minutes contact. At that point, I will pull the hop bags out, and that will go into their fermenter, topped up and cool off, and basically stop that hop from going anywhere. So it's combination flame out, almost boil cool, not quite a hop stand sort of an effect, but it should give us a nice wide hop flavour without having to muck around too much with precise cooling temperatures. So it's something you can do easily. It's just going to sit here on the stove and just slowly cool off. So that's now boiling. So once that 10 minutes is up, the first hops, I can add the new hops in here. I'll pull that one out. Now, don't worry too much if it's getting confused, because at home obviously you're only going to do one. You're only going to be doing one batch. So I will list the separate ingredients in the comments of the underneath, so you'll be able to quickly go through and have a look at what each one was. So while that's continuing to boil, I'm going to go and get my fermenters, which is sitting at the back. They're previously they were cleaned. They've been sprayed with sanitizer while I was working this all out, so they're ready to go. I'll bring them in. I'm going to mix up the tin and the fermenter and get it ready to split between both batches. Okay, so sticking the tin into this big fermenter, and I'm going to mix this up, just the tin and water, up to about 15 litres. So if we've got 4 litres or thereabouts in each of the pots, which will go into the individual fermenter. So I'll get this mixed up to 15 litres in this barrel, and then I will drop this between two smaller fermenters. Anybody who watched the last video where I split a tin brew, which I think was Kingsley's Passion Fruit Cerveza, I'll stick a link up for that, because if you've not seen that and not brewed it and you're a kit brewer, then you really need to. But I didn't. I just roughly split the tin by sight, and it didn't work particularly well. Ended up with 4-point difference on the gravity on basically the same beer. So this time wouldn't have mattered so much because they are going to be different. But I don't want to do that a little bit. So our 10 minutes is up there. So I will shut the boil off on the first batch. And it'll just settle now while I get this done. And the first lot of hops go in there. And I'm turning that off as well. Give that 10 minutes. Now I'm going to pull this one off the heat, just so it cools a little bit quicker without anything underneath it. We'll turn that noisemaker off. So our usual jug of boiling water in there. Under there, sliding around a little bit. Don't know why they don't create non-slip bloody kitchen benches. Right, so we just start topping this up. Mix. And again, it's always a good idea to mix up your extract nice and slowly. Add your cold water bit by bit so you get it all off the bottom. At the end of the day, the yeast will eat everything off the bottom, even if you don't mix it in well. But it just make sure you've got a an accurate initial reading when you do your first sampling and get your gravity reading. And mixing this as you go is a really good way of getting plenty of oxygen into your brew. Now I've just took a little bit extra warm water back into the tin just to help get as much out of here as we can. Why waste it? Get the extra in. Mixing. Righto, sun should get us pretty close to that 15 litre mark. Yeah, good enough for me at the moment. So now, given I'm going to transfer from this into another fermenter, I need to really make sure I've got nothing on the bottom. A good way of doing this is to scrape your spoon on the bottom and pick him out, make sure there's nothing sort of clinging to it. Pretty happy with that. So let's grab a kitchen, grab a chair. One fermenter on there, making sure the tap is closed. There's always the stuff up if you don't. And let that flow. Now this is going to add even more oxygen again. 15, so I want 7.5 out of there. So I'll transfer this one first, and I can just leave this sit for the moment and get on with finishing this side off, so I can stop that hop from having any more utilisation. It's not doing a lot, and with the 10-minute boiling pad it's not going to hurt to have that little bit extra. Close enough on that. Bring him out of the way. Bring him up. Okay, so that's our boil. Let's grab the hot bag out. You don't want that in the fermenter. You'll notice sometimes some videos I'll throw it in, some videos I won't. This one I don't want to throw it in. Quite often I'll recommend when a kit to throw the hops in. That's generally when it's only a small amount and it's not going to do too much in the final flavour. There's enough there that's going to cause extra flavour, and there's plenty of bitterness already coming from the tin because it's an IPA, so we don't want to drag any extra in. So that's in there. That should now, it's still a little warm, but it's definitely going to be cool enough that it's going to stop that utilisation. So there's still a bit of steam coming up there, still warmish. What I'll do, I'll take both of these out to the fridge and I'll stick them in the fridge. They should be right for pitching on pretty late tonight. It's only about 3 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock. So they'll cool down alright in the fridge, not a problem. So that's the first batch, it's done. Get him out of the way. As I said, we'll just let him, I'll go and put it in the fridge now while the rest of this one runs through. We've got 1 minute before we put the next lot of hops in there. So that'll give me just enough time to run this one out to the fridge. So I'll run through this one and that's it. One more bag in here in a minute. Another bag in 10 minutes, and 10 minutes after that I'll pull the bags and I'll add it into the other fermenter, which I'll transfer shortly. So I'm not going to worry about showing you that. It's the same thing I've just done with that one. No, that's no different. I'll stick the full recipes, all the quantities in the comments, and final gravities, and this one's going to go into, I said going into the fridge, USO 5 really don't want, I'm not going to be too worried about it. I want some fruit from it, so I'll probably sit it on about 18, maybe 19 degrees, somewhere around there. I'll put out in the comments exactly what I finally decide when I put it down. And we'll come back in about a month's time, 5 weeks, and we'll have a look and we'll do some tasting on these two and see how they go. So that's it. Coopers Brew A IPA, fairly standard, and tricked up into a rye IPA with some extra hops for a little bit extra impact. And I've just realised sitting here that I did not add the other bag of the BE3 into that first batch, so I'll pull it back. I'm going to add that in, then stick it in the fridge. Again, that's all good, you don't need to see that. So that's my little jump for the day. Any questions, comments, it's been a little bit chaotic. Anything clarified, ask away. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the red button down there in the corner. Come along for the ride, but we do this for the crazy stuff. Other than that, till I see you again, good brewing.